Alright, today I am struggling with trying to get this Fraser audit thing out. So all of my tools are failing me. No one wants me to seem to want, everyone wants to seem to get in the way of this one. I don't know why. But this is the Clark family. I was, you know, asked to do someone white. So here we are today doing the Clark family. So in this group, we'll see, a small group of peoples, balloon also, like some of the other Asian families. In it, we see a lot of migrants, white South Africans, Australians, and Americans as well. So I guess we'll go through it. Um, so in 2016, there are two spellings of this family, so I included them both for, completion's sake. The Clarks without an E, there were four of them. Three of them did not survive all the way to 2025. Only one did. That was Maureen. And for the Clarks with an E, it was the reverse sort of idea. Only one of them was cold, and the rest of them survived all the way to the 2025. They were employed for the whole duration. So of the folks who worked cold, in 2016 there were four people employed in the Clark without an E family. So Donna was last paid in 2022. Her only link to Fraser Health was with a provincial personal assistance guidelines working group. She was claiming to be a long-term care assistant. Um, Now, there was also an author, a writer, who was seen in the US in pro-Palestine riots. There's also an Indian-looking nurse operating in Ontario. Now, all of the women look like teachers who were working in South Africa at a Waldorf school. The white Donna has a photo we'll see of her attending with Indian Donna. So let's take a quick look at her profile. Donna, right? So we'll start in the center here. No, no, no. So Donna is this lady. This one's the pro-Palestine, you know, um, teacher author. She looks a little bit like the woman who died in Parksville, BC in 2022. Here you see her, she's working on publications. So she's doing writing, right? So she's doing publications from a variety of sources. Here she's standing beside this woman here. Her name is Aditi Bharati Ashut. She looks Indian. Um, Both of these two ladies are using the name Donna Clark. So in Ontario, this woman here is claiming to be working in North Huron Family Health. So she's listed in Listowel, Kincardine. She's also listed in Orangeville. So when I pulled up her profile in Orangeville, apparently the old CEO stepped down so that she could step up. And the old CEO was this Rueg woman who thought she had cancer and then, died. All of these names are associated to this Waldorf school. Um, So Waldorf here, and this lady also looks a little bit like Razia Alham. And Razia Alham worked with a lorry in South Africa. So um, there are going to be, for this group, a lot of women linked to this North African group. So the whole group seems to be from the same region. So this lady is standing beside this Donna Clark, but the one from South Africa is the Indian woman, not the white woman in this case. Right? So, like I said, the same name is being used for these two women who stand together in this photo, but only the white woman is the one who's using the name Donna Clark in this photo. But the Indian woman is using this name here, but her name might be Razia and it might be Aditi. It's hard to say. All right. So right at the beginning, it's like, okay, well, hold on. Why is a woman who was working as an educator for kindergarten and high school students, who moved through the U.S., like the Waldorf school itself moved through the United States? Why is she using the name of another Donna to work as a nurse in Canada if she was an educator, not a nurse? So the next one on the list was Kimberly. Kimberly was last paid in 2017. She was a South African who worked in medical imaging with only a high school certificate. She took a ceramics course in Canada. I'm going to bring it up so you can see with me. So right here. So it's this woman here. So she was a South African who worked in Durban, KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa. She worked at a physiotherapy clinic. When she only had grade 12 high school, which I guess there aren't as many educated medical professionals in Africa, and that was acceptable there. But when she came here, you're not going to be able to work without medical credentials. You need training, right? You can't just work at a high school and claim I worked in Africa with only high school. So she looks a lot like this woman here, who claims to be a social worker in Ontario, who in a public article complained of long COVID. She was a donator to 2012 in the Guelph Hospital, and I assume she worked as a supervisor or caterer in Ontario, based on this profile that she put up. But you can see it's very different from her South African profile, but the two women look almost identical. Um, there is another lady using this name. I don't know how similar she is, but she's a little bit older than the other two photos. So the first one is 78, right? So it's a really old photo. She looks very young. This one is 95, and the one at the bottom is like 2018. And so it seems like the woman attended, like the young girl was working in 2013 in South Africa. But in 2018, she took a ceramics course at BC here in Campbell River. And in Campbell River, why is this drawing? I don't know why it's drawing. Okay, in Campbell River, she was working I guess, for assistance in a community living center. So she was a resident care worker and a camp attendant working with kids. That's what she did in Campbell River. And her profile ends at 2018. It's like she was in, you can see sort of look at the dates here, right? She was in South Africa until sometime around 2013. Then she's down here in Campbell River until 2015. Then she attends university. She's the ceramics course until 2018. Then she's over somewhere in Ontario, but she doesn't put dates. Then there's another lady down here who's running a arts studio, who claims to be in insurance. So this might be a different Kim, this older one down here. But she's in hypnotism. And then there was someone claiming to be a recruiter, and then an Asian one, and a registered nurse in the United States. And there's um, even a company that is being sued, and an RCMP officer. So there was a lot of Kims, but I'm pretty sure all of the women seem to be linked to this Campbell River region, at least two of them. So I'm pretty sure it's this top record here, at the top here with the Kim, these ones here. So she apparently is someone who used to work in physio clinics, is possibly trying to work in, assisted living, so resident care work. And she's sort of trying to go under the radar because she's got like three different profiles, which have completely segmented her experiences. But they fit together perfectly in this, even within this region of which she is from. So the reason, like I said, I'm pretty sure it's her, is because her mother, is the next person. Um, Her mother was Lori, right? She, like Kim, also lives in Campbell River, and she was the kindergarten teacher at the Waldorf school. So that's Lori. It's this woman here. So she worked in, it's, let's see, they placed her at Hillcrest, KwaZulu-Natal. So that's literally right beside where the other girl was working in the other profile, right? It appears like Lori came back first and then Lori joined her later. Because I can see profile here where Lori's working as an accountant in Campbell River on Vancouver Island in 2010. So sometime before 2010, Lori comes. Sometime after 2013, daughter Kim comes. So maybe the daughter stayed a few years later because she was working a job and then decided to give up, and then found, wait a minute, I can't do what I was doing there. I need more education, but I can't get accepted because I only have high school. And I guess maybe her high school wasn't good enough to transfer to a biology program to do anything similar, so she ended up in ceramics. But it looks like she still tried to sort of sneak her way into the health profession with no health experience. So Lori, started out as a freight handler, then is doing private tax consulting. By 2017, it looks like she's doing, what was it? She's working with a hospital foundation, the BC Women's Hospital Foundation, which we will find is flagged a couple times on this Clark family profile as being supporting sketchy peoples. Um, and then we have here, a private business owner in 2021. And her company is an anti-money laundering. Yeah, sure, right. So yeah. So she comes from South Africa as a teacher, goes through like accounting, then ends up in healthcare to come back to private business and money laundering. Yeah, sure. Okay. Whatever you say, lady. Her own personal profile here has a gap where she was working as a tax accountant. It makes me wonder if all these people were her tax clients. Um, she claims her education was in North Carolina, which might also have links to some of the Waldorf schools. So, yeah, okay. Clearly, the woman is not working for Fraser Health, though, right? If she's a private business owner and she was working at BC Women's Hospital and she was doing taxes, she wouldn't have been someone who was working in healthcare. Her daughter maybe got her way back in through the, resident care, working as like moving patients and working in maybe like care home as a attendant. But clearly she has no experience, right? Whoops. So we'll go back. Oh, for fuck's sake. Um, see. Last of the original Clarks is Lori. Sorry, it was Maureen. So then we have Maureen, which is here. So Maureen's an interesting case. She's also through South Africa. So in 2013, or actually before that even, we'll start at the bottom. She has a thesis paper that she was working on when she was a student. um, in 2004. And she did this thesis at a university in Australia. And her thesis was on mythology and identity. She was doing a mythological native story for Native Australians in 2004. Then I'm not sure where she ends up. Like her Australian profile um, claims she was working as a marketing manager in the South Pacific Islands in Fiji, right? So she's claiming she went somewhere in Fiji and she worked at McDonald's as a business manager in Fiji. So maybe she opened a franchise or something. Um, for whatever reason, she shows up here with a Dr. Charles Clark writing books in South Africa. He's publishing books through South Africa, right next to our, other folks. She's also linked to the author, right? Um, then after, we can see they stopped writing books in 2013 for whatever reason. Then we see in 2006, there was in 2012, there was a Maureen Clark who was, I guess, indicted for fraud in the United States in Connecticut. So they accused her of money laundering. You know how I laughed at the other woman whose business was anti-money laundering? So apparently, they were soliciting investments at a casino. So after 2012, I guess they flee this charge. She ends up in Alaska with the fire services there. This woman has a very interesting life, huh? So she's working with the fire services team. She claims that, oh, we have land there. We're with the, what is it? The Gwich'in tribal council. So she's working with the Gwich'in tribal council in Northwest Territories, Yukon area. And so she showed up in 2013 with the fire department, and then suddenly between 2015 and 18, she's an advisory for this native tribe. So, yeah. On these articles with the Gwich'in tribe, she claims to be married to a Peter, who moved from the UK to Newfoundland in 2016. So, they're working on land tribes, and suddenly her husband's got a job with the RCMP and is going to Newfoundland. Sure. They came through the U.S., right? They're not Canadians. They're not natives. This lady came from, we don't know where he came from. We know she definitely came from Australia. Or at least she did her undergraduate on natives, studying them in Australia. So she's trying to use her undergraduate and study experience to impersonate natives. So she was paid the longest out of all of them. Um, in Abbotsford, there's two Marines who claims to work with Abbotsford Hospital at a wound care clinic. One links to 2014, like she just shows up on a document in 2014. The other one doesn't have a date, but she's claiming to be an office clerk at a steel plant. So, I mean, this is a document that showed up later. It was reviewed in 2014. They claimed it was in 2011, but we already know with the Gwich'in stuff, she started manufacturing fake documents back from 92. And she didn't show up till 2014. So we know, and they're only using it in 2014 for the current set of land claims, right? Like the photo itself was taken in 2000. It might have been from her education in Australia when she was studying native history there. So in 2021, they claimed they had owned a historical roadhouse in the Yukon, right? On this, road. They're actually coming in from Alaska into the Yukon, not the other way around, but they're claiming they owned a roadhouse between. So on her Alaskan profile, she claims to work in the land management office there, which is kind of hilarious. So here's her Alaskan profile right here. So she claims between 2014 and 2021 she was working in Anchorage in the Public Affairs Specialist Land Management. And then you go in, and it's like, hold on a second. Someone who was working in, who was working in Gwich'in and who was working in the, she's working from Alaska with Gwich'in, right? So what, is she promising folks Alaskan land and Canadian land from an Alaskan job? And why is she working with fire services? Like, she's working with this Kim Wong, and Kim Wong is also a firefighter who claims to be a helicopter pilot. Like, her contact claiming to be in the Yukon was King Wong. King Wong is also an Alaskan. They're both Alaskans. She's playing basketball in Alaska and doing a bunch of sports. She's interacting. There's another one also who claims to go to St. John's. So in 2008, there's one in St. John's. Between 2008 and 2013, this Kim is in Alaska. In 2016, she's back in Alberta. So yeah. So how she did this document switcheroo is in 2023 and 2024 there's a Marine claiming to work with historical documents, the Canadian Conservation Institute Library. So I think that's where a lot of this, oh, I own land and our family's been here bullshit came from with this woman. So she's using her job, as an Australian, South African, or wherever she originated from, to, put documents. She's interfering in native peoples with probably creating fake natives. Um, and she may or may not have been married to a man named Rich Toop. We're not sure. But like I said, the most active profile today for her, most modern, seems like she went back to Australia. And she's on some insect research board. But I mean, like I said, she has profiles in Pennsylvania. She's got profiles in Alaska. She claims to have been in Abbotsford, and she definitely gets around, right? So yeah. So I'm not sure Maureen was employed the longest because she was the most successful criminal of the group, but it seems like the others, um, you know, follow her path. So that was 2016, right? So you can see it went from this small little picture and it balloons to this. So they fired the three women to hire six more of the clerks without an E. And in the clerks with an E, they fired one to hire one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, right? So between 2016 and 2025, there's about $14 million that we as Canadian peoples spent on their families, which seems a little offensive if they're sitting there attacking us with forest fires and fake lands claims. Okay, so we'll start at the top here with the Clarks without an E, with Amy. So Amy does claim to work from Fraser Health. She claims to be an environmental health officer between 2008 and to 2021. Now, we only see documents of her being paid in 2021. If she was paid all this time, we would have seen her as early as 2016, because that's the period that we have. She claims she took occupational health studies in Ryerson. Now there's a bunch of them, right? There's another student at UBC, um, who I can't confirm if she's convocated yet because it's too recent. There's a woman who was skiing. There's also this lady who was in Alberta, um, claiming to, which I flagged because like, oh, native claims. So she's stepping out and complaining about the school system in Ontario, just south of Ottawa. But 2 months after being in Nunavut, she claims to be a Mohawk in Ontario. So that's the thing, right? So there's this lady up here who was in Iqaluit, claiming that she had graduated from Dalhousie in biology. So this lady has a I think she did a nursing degree in a companion sort of program with the University of Dalhousie in, I think, the East Coast, right? But she also has a theater degree. So she, she did graduate from both of these. I can see someone with her name on both of them. So she did do both, strangely enough. But she was a theater major who was working in immigrations, basically, according to her own profile. So, how did she register for a 4-year Bachelor of Science if she was working with the government? And how did she transfer a undergraduate prerequisites from a theater's degree? It looks like they let her take studies without having the right background. So, when I looked up her, her registry office work, she has submitted many, 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 many claims. The same time period as Maureen was working as a land specialist in Alaska, right? So it was between the period of 2012 and 2015 that she was doing this. And it's everywhere. It's in Manitoba, it's in Saskatchewan, it's in BC. Um, every time, every claim was filed with a different lawyer as well, which was a bit weird. Don't you think they'd be working with the same peoples? Why are they different lawyers with different claims and different nations? So it makes you wonder, are all these nations fake nations? Being set up through this Alaskan woman transferring people in from somewhere else? Are they coming from South Africa? Are they coming from Australia? Are they coming from South America, the US? But we have like 3-year period of time where these women are working together. Um, so it's a little bit scary, right? Is there anything else? So there are a few others, employed in a variety of areas across the U.S. and Canada. Not, they don't particularly look alike. Um, this Amy looks a little bit like Maureen. There's even a transgendered guy, which made me roll my eyes in Manitoba. But then there are two photos for two. It looks like almost three different men, right? Who are posing as this transgender guy. Guy with a thin face, guy with a fat face, guy who is fat. I suppose it's possible the dude lost a lot of weight, but you don't tend to go from having a round face to an oval oblong face. One thing I also noticed as well is they kept being linked to a cannabis. There's a lady linked to a cannabis company around one of these First Nation regions. So I'm not sure if that's what they were doing on this land, is that they were farming cannabis and selling it. And they have businesses all across Colorado, California, Edmonton in the Clark name. So I'm wondering if that's what they were doing with the land. But we'll keep going, right? We'll keep going in this investigation. So that was Amy, right? Amy, there was one claim of working for as an environmental health officer, but she's not linked to a hospital. She's not linked to any articles. And the only place I can find her is in Nunavut and in immigration's work and land claims again. So next one is Christina Andrea. So if we look at Christina. So Christina was another government policy analyst. She claims to work, you know, from 2006 to some time, like the page looks dead, as a policy analyst. Now, this one's interesting because there is a Christina Clark who did work at in Prince George, claiming to be a hospital unit clerk. And then there's another one who was a dental hygienist. All of these ladies kind of look, I guess, a little bit like this woman from Vancouver here, who claims to be a land use planner again. So we got, again, land, indigenous. She's working with indigenous support and policy research, yada, yada, yada. But before 2023, she was a spa manager. In 2014, she was a guest of a Jordan McPhee and Benjamin Chen traveling to Hong Kong, then India, then London, and back to Vancouver. Well, she was a spa consultant. Prostitute, huh? So she was hired by the executive assistant to the Premier of BC to to go on a trip with a oil and power lobbyist from Hong Kong. That sounds a little bit sketchy, no? And then suddenly she comes back to BC, owns her own spa, and then suddenly becomes working in healthcare. Prostitute, huh? This is like Epstein worthy, man. So who was she sleeping with, I wonder? Jordan McPhee here was the pursuit manager of Capgemini. So he left his role with the governor of BC and opened a finger food studios as a director. So, and what is he? He's selling food manufacturing or something? Like, what was he doing? And yeah, so here's the lobby document here. So Benjamin Chin was a lobbyist for a Fetch West. And he was a speaker as a lobbyist again. So he all we know of him is that he's a lobbyist in oil and power. So, you had a executive assistant to the premier, and a lobbyist to oil and power, and a prostitute on a trip to Hong Kong. Whoopee. And then, she's impersonating a health professional after running a spa. And she may be living with her husband or partner, um, which is an Indian man, Satchit Pandher, on a Bowman Island, which they probably don't own, but they're operating a health retreat there. So I'm not sure, like, is she actually in healthcare, or is this just a fake profile? Is she really just a faith healing prostitute con artist living with an Indian man on an island? I mean, it's a little bit sketchy. So she's using the name of Christy Clark, who was a BC premier, which is hilarious, right? And you can look up. There is a lady here who did work with Loren, who's an oil and gas company in BC and Ontario, Alberta as well. But she doesn't look like the. Well, I don't know. Does she look like the prostitute lady to you over here? Well, this would have been the prostitute lady, and this one would have been the oil and power lady. And here's the lady operating the spa. So, yeah, okay, sure, whatever. So she's using using sex and government connections, and wealthy men to, I guess, make money. But again, I don't see any link to health except claiming to be working on, working with this medical groups and indigenous support. So why is she working in land claims? How does a spa prostitute become a land claims agent? Anyway, so now we'll move on to Harmony Susie. Harmony Susie. Okay. So Harmony has a couple people trying to use her identity. So right here in 2019, she shows up with linked to Fraser Health, right? She's supposedly a certified child life specialist working in pediatrics at Abbotsford. There's a public article. There's her face here. I can see her here, over here. Um, she kind of looks like her mother. Grace Hoff looks like Lori Clark, no? That's her mother. And her sister-in-law, Christine over here, does she look like Kim? It might be a weird coincidence, but it's interesting, no? So her father I can find in Prince George. So I can place her in Prince George, BC. That's where she claims to be. That's where her father claims to be. The problem is this other woman over here claims her name, right? This doesn't look like her at all. So she's sitting here at an Indian restaurant surrounded by three other Indian people, claiming to be Susie, Child Life Specialist. Harmony Susie. Now, this lady shows up in, you know, modern times, right? She's in 2026. Gal palling with the Indian peoples using this other lady's identity. So either she had a dramatic, weight reduction that was not reflected on her Facebook page. Or someone's using her ID. Now, I did find someone who looked like her. It was this woman here. She's a content creator from Queensland, Australia, who's married to this man here, who looks a little bit like this Indian man on the side. Um, yeah. So there's also an author, and then there's someone working in mining. And that's what the one in Australia claims to be doing. She was doing she was working as an author and content creator, but she was also doing sole trading in 2025. So she closed her business in 2025, but she was trading in sometime around 2012. I don't think she looks anything like the author. That's the lady who claims that the picture of the author. I don't think she looks anything like her. So then there's also, she was making clothing or mining clothing for women or something. Yeah. So I'm not sure about that. But like I said, someone claimed to work in Abbotsford, then suddenly this other woman's using her ID at fundraising events. Who looks like this Australian woman. And like I said, the woman who's linked to Fraser Health has pictures that look strangely like Lori and Kim. So that was a little bit interesting as a red flag. If that's a coincidence, that's a pretty strange one. So now we do Chris. Chris. All right. Chris absolutely looks like she's changing names. Again, another woman who's using the name of Christy Clark, right? So there is an RCMP officer who has this name, a staff sergeant of senior media relations. He's putting out like publications all the time of folks who are, allegations and stuff getting people have been attacked. Now, when I looked her up, um, it looks like she changes her name 3 times. She starts as Kristen Perry, goes to Caitlin Edmonds, and then back to Chris Clark. And I'm tying her to all of these things through this King Charles III coronation medal, right? So the RCMP, of which we have a Chris in RCMP, nominates this Kristen Perry, Chris Clark. And when you look up Kristen Perry is this lady here. So she claims to be a fundraiser who knows Dutch or Danish, and South Africans speak Afrikaner, which is a sort of like an offshoot of Danish. And she claims to have gone to school in the Netherlands. So she moved through the Netherlands to Canada, or at least that's what her story is. But the younger version of her before she got pregnant is this Kristen Perry at she was around, what was it? Queen's University. She was doing fundraising for students, for business startups for students. And she appears to hover around the school between 2014 and 2020. She was accused on Facebook in 2024 of theft, or someone was who looked a little bit like her. Well, Caitlin Edmonds, who looks almost identical to Kristen Perry here, um, went claims to have gone to UBC. Now, Caitlin didn't graduate from UBC, so this educational credentials is faked. But she's claiming to be a behavioral consultant with CBI Consultants, and that's how she's linked to Fraser Health. She claims she was hired as the consultant group for Fraser Health. And she's using the name Christy Clark, right? Instead of Caitlin Edmonds. So when I go back, like again, there's Caitlin Edmonds here. She's a registered psychotherapist. She's claiming to operate in Ontario, North Bay, and Sudbury. And she also happens to be an Indigenous Special Projects Officer working with Laurentian University. So it looks like the woman claimed to have done education at Laurentian, ended up at um, kicking around Queen's University for fundraising, then it came back to BC and then joined the health organization. So if you follow the timelines and you look at the stuff. So how I know this Caitlin Edmonds from Laurentian is bogus is in Laurentian University, she claims she graduated with a speech language pathologist degree in 2012. This program did not exist. Um, it was just, the master's program was just being created. Um, in what was it, 2014? Yeah, they were building a program in 2014 around the master. So prior to this, the program didn't exist before 2003, and she claims she attended it while it didn't exist. So I know this degree didn't exist, but I'm pretty sure she probably manufactured it while she was working in the university. She might have been, when she was working with Indigenous students and academic programs, been looking for people's IDs to go move to other regions and ended up in BC. But she moves from a credentials of, fundraising to a credentials of, um, I guess, behavioral consultancy, like psychology. So she went from business to psychology. But she goes like the name goes like Kristen Perry, Caitlin Edmonds, Kristen Perry, back to Kristen Perry, Chris Clark. So why does this woman have two IDs? And you can see here, it's like follow the timeline, right? She claims to attend Queen's University from 2012 to 2016 and build an investment firm. Then she claims to attend Laurentian before that period while working in the admissions office. So was she at Queen's University or at the admissions office? She claims to have taken a program that wasn't built. So her programs falls apart. Like her past at Laurentian fell apart. So she could have been at Queen's before she landed at Laurentian. Then she claimed she had a child and was on maternity leave between 2016 and 2017. So after maternity leave, we see this larger Caitlin Edmonds. She claims to attend a school, which she did not graduate, then do behavioral consultancy. If if you ignore the educational, that was not there because she didn't graduate, you can see sort of, hey, they don't really overlap. It's like 2012 to 2016 for the first one, 2016 to 2017 for the second one, 2018 to 2020 for the third, 2021 to 2023 for the fourth, 2024 for the fifth, right? So there's no overlaps. If you take out all the stuff that didn't that we couldn't verify because it looked like a lie, it's like a straight line. And it's like, is she trying to impersonate the name of the politician? Like, we're not sure. Like, the time periods that she goes back to using this lady's name, like when she starts trying to use the name is when she became a passive member of the Conservatives, right? So, are these all the same people? And why was she nominated by this Chris Clark in the RCMP? Does this Chris Clark exist, or is it just a cover for, again, her identity? So it's kind of interesting. But again, another tie to somebody claiming links to Indigenous projects. So let's move on. Um, we did Maureen, so we'll do Shauna. So Shauna was first paid in 2023. Um, Shauna claims to be an LPN at Maplewood Senior Living in Abbotsford, BC. The problem with this right here is Maplewood Senior Living does not exist in Abbotsford, BC. It's a seniors living home in Cleveland. Well, all across the United States. They've got locations in Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, and Washington. Now, I found a Shauna in Cleveland. She was being sued by a bank in Ohio in 2024. She owed them about $12,000 and skipped out. So it looks like she had a child in 2023. Her Facebook doesn't show her boyfriend or her husband, but it does say she's living in Zamesfield, which is literally just a straight shoot away from where she's being sued by the bank. She looks a little bit like this lady who's working in New Hampshire in child services. So it makes you wonder, oh crap, did she jump ship with a child from New Hampshire? Is that why she stole $12,000 from the bank? Did she buy this child? It's like you don't know what happened there. It's like there's a woman with her face in child services in New Hampshire. She stole money from a bank in Ohio. She's claiming to work for this senior living that has links in Ohio. Um, Now it's like, well, how on earth did we screw that up? It's like, how we screwed this up is Maplewood House in is a funded behavioral support transition neighborhood in BC. Behavioral consultant from the last lady. Well, this one claims to be a 23-room designated house, and they did claim that they were going to upgrade this place into a senior long-term care facility. It says, with the Fraser Health District, First Nations, and community partners, we'll build a new 5-story care facility on vacant land next to the Maplewood House near Abbotsford Hospital. Right? Okay, well, it's not built yet. So there's no way this woman should be paid for working at a care facility that doesn't exist, right? And what was the $12,000 from? Did she bribe her way in? Did she pay for documentation? There's a few others um, in the U.S. So when I was looking for other people, like in the U.S., there was a medical assistant, a black lady, a dancer, a compliance agent, a financial person. I couldn't find any good matches, the best matches in Ohio. In Washington, there was an infections nurse and an ultrasound technician. But like I said, the one with the sketchiest story seems to have been the Ohio lady. Now, someone did open a GoFundMe for a disabled kid, apparently. And this disabled kid looks a lot like this Newfoundland kid who's perfectly healthy. And this woman claims to work for, what was it? Hydro? Yeah. Contract Newfoundland Labrador Hydro. So it's like, okay, well, someone in this story, she claims for this GoFundMe, she claims she moved to BC from Oklahoma. So another woman who's claiming to come from the U.S. She moved to Alberta first and then went to Cancun trying to get treatment. Okay, so why would you go to Cancun for treatment? They have better treatment in the Caribbean there? So I don't know who would have put up a fake GoFundMe, but there was also this very Russian-looking woman who claims to have come from Ireland, looking like this you know, lady from Alberta, who was linked to Vancouver City hypnotherapy. She gave a testimony at a hypnotherapy clinic in Vancouver City. So I don't know. Like you got a marketer film. She claims she went to school in for film school in Vancouver. So we also have a film student, another one who's studying propaganda and film um, in Vancouver. We have a bunch of others. So if you start looking at okay, well, who else might have been in Alberta that put up this this obviously fake GoFundMe. Well, there's a lady claiming to work in correction services who looks a lot like this California and Georgian lady. And she was in Georgia working in corrections. Then there's another one that's similar to her working now in um, Alberta. And again, there's no timelines there. So from 2015, she was an administrative clerk, and then in 2016, she's claiming to work for the government of Canada. And then there's two ladies also claiming to work in care and housing. So care providers and home care, like what this woman claimed to do at the top, who was paid by Maplewood Senior Living. But I don't think the lady at the bottom here, the Shauna in corrections, reminds me of the one who skipped from Ohio. Not sure. Maybe a little. If we zoom all the way in. So, yeah. She's also playing, it seems like she's playing that transgendered, two-spirited bullshit card. Erin and Shauna Clark Marlowe. She has two names. One's male, one's female. So she's two-spirited and she's claiming to be native. So did she fake faith to get diversity hired? That seems to be a card they like to play. Claiming to be natives and claiming fake faith to be hired. And of these two ladies, one claimed to work from a home builder, one claimed to work as a care provider. So there are a few sketchy ladies here. Definitely the Ohio lady who skipped out and stole money from accounts is interesting. And why on earth did they accept that she was being paid by Maplewood Senior Living when we don't have a Maplewood Senior Living? So that's interesting, huh? Then we have Wendy. Okay. So Wendy also featured in one of these Fraser Health articles. Hers was also in 2019, like the other Clark. She was first paid, however, by Fraser Health in 2024. After she was working at her own private clinic. So what she does is art therapy, right? Art therapy doesn't sound like very something we would want to public fund, does it? It's for mental health, I guess, and community engagement, but it's something that you can say, yeah, I can see you faking this without a medical profession. Yeah. So there's a Wendy Clark who's retired in Whistler. She was working at the Squamish Cultural Center. So another, native Thai in Whistler. And then there's another one who claimed to be a trustee at the school district board who's also retired. There's also a lady who was hit by a car near the University of Guelph Ridgetown campus in 2022, right before Whistler Wendy started working at the Native Cultural Center. Also, before Fraser Health Wendy started working at her own clinic. So did this lady come into Canada after hit and run killing a senior uh, in Ridgetown? Or is that a coincidence? That senior looks like the school trustee, the retired school trustee. So now we go to the Clarks with an E, and we're at Andrea. So there are two of them. There's a white version and a black version of this lady. The white version is all, indigenous tied up. Another woman claiming to work for CBI Health Group. So you remember the lady with the multiple identities who claimed to be working for CBI? Well, this lady claims to be there too. Um, there's another lady that looks a little bit like her in tourism and hospitality, who claims to be in Vancouver. Um, there's also an older lady who looks a lot like her. So maybe this is an old photo, who claims to own a Peachland art gallery, who looks a lot like this corrections officer lady who got a Governor General's Award for exemplary service in Amherstburg, Ontario. Apparently, she was a corrections officer at St. Clair College. Got a liver transplant, and somehow that got her awarded a service medal. Now, there's no record the woman taught at St. Clair College. I can't find her there. But Georgian College recognizes her as an alumni in 2009. She had a GoFundMe where she raised about a couple $1,000s. So it's like, okay, well, that's interesting. So is she a nurse? Is she a corrections officer? Or is she a tourism and an art gallery owner? Is she all three? Um, so how she links to the Indigenous studies is there was someone writing papers in, Nunavut, claiming to be working for a law foundation. And when I look that up, that is a black lady. Um, who did not write these papers of Indigenous studies. So this Clark seems to be lecturing at the University of Windsor. 2 years after the Guelph lawyer supposedly died. So there'll be two lawyers. One will be black, one will be white. And the white lawyer will be dead, and we'll get to her in a second. But before I do that, we'll go through the rest of the ones linked to health. So this lady in Guelph, there's also a healthcare lady in Guelph next to the lawyer. This one claims to be working at the general hospital. As a residential worker, child counselor, abuse. Again, it's similar stuff to behavioral work. In Alberta, we have another one of those complaining parent stories that Amy had. Complaining about the, concerned parent in the news complaining about the school system in the Native community. She's, working in finance and lending centers because she's loaning monies. And then we have a naturopathic doctor and another the surface lady, Andrea. So, so this lady's doing land analysis, pipelines, and all that other jazz. So now we'll go to the lawyer, right? So when I went to follow the trace of the indigenous line through the who's impersonating the thing, there were two lawyers. There's the white lawyer and the black lawyer. So the white lawyer over here is this older lady. She claims to be of the native tribes of Oklahoma. So remember how the other lady claimed to have come through Oklahoma? So this lady's writing powers on indigenous empowerment in North America, yada yada yada. But she migrated to Canada through Oklahoma. She's not a native Canadian. So great. Um, that's the author, right? Um, on the lawyer ratings, so there was a woman who looks like this lady, Andrea Stacia Clark from Guelph, Ontario. She died at 60. She claims she was working for the Supreme Court of Justice. Before that, she had her own private practice. Um, this one is interesting to sort of poke through. It looks like somebody got sued with the name. There's two lawyers. There's the white lady and the black lady. One of the two of them got sued. They claimed it was the lady from Guelph. And on Guelph, she was getting very contradictory ratings on the lawyer rating site. She had like very good, very bad, very bad, very good, very bad, very good. And the one reviewed here is in Kincardine because the Guelph lady, so we have one here, one review had this very similar review to the African lady in Kincardine after the Guelph woman died. So in 2013, they added the review to the Guelph lady saying she mailed me another client's, details. It has the wrong names on it. It's, she stammered and couldn't speak properly. And then suddenly, then we got the one in 2024 accused of the same thing. It's like her communication was bad. The documents she sent to be reviewed had the wrong dates and wrong names. So it's exactly the same comment that the lady got in 2013, like almost 11 years later. So was the black woman impersonating the other lawyer and working illegally in Canada? It's like, that's interesting. So when I tried to look through and try to detangle and figure out who was whom, what I found was the very first Andrea Clark came from Jamaica. Well, the black one. And she impersonated an environmental health officer. She wrote an article in 2007 about marijuana grow ops, and she was standing with a Veronica Cruz. She claimed she had a Bachelor of Science. Now, there is a profile for this lady here, who's in Montreal, claiming that she is working as a director of a charity called Head and Hands. So it looks like, okay, so this Jamaican woman came, and like you can even go further back. Like if I go to Jamaica, there are a few records there. She's an environmental health officer in Jamaica. She's an administrative clerk at the Ministry of National Security in Jamaica, and then suddenly there's this very transgendered native looking person working at the Bank of Jamaica who looks like Veronica Cruz of Jamaica. So it's like, that's interesting. So did Veronica Cruz, take on Andrea Clark's ID in Jamaica while she came to Canada? And then the black lady here. So it's interesting. She started out in 2007 claiming to be an environmental health officer in Ontario studying grow-ups. Then someone came to Westminster, BC in 2011 claiming to work for a law firm while impersonating a government policy agent on a child services case. So this document here says that In 2011, she was working with the Justice Services branch of the Attorney General. Was that the Guelph woman or the black lady? Um, they recognized that she was one of the people working on the database. So she had the ability to change data, add data, insert data, modify data in 2011. So this is a written document talking about the child services case. This is a text website describing a link to a database system and that she was a member of it. And then down here, we have someone claiming to work as a lawyer for Perkison, Gammon, and Sim. Now, Perkison, Gammon, and Sim is linked to like Halton District School Board as a member of the board. So she was a board investor, manager of a particular school board. Now, that one who worked for that lawyer in New Westminster, BC, claims she worked for the federal government of Canada. Now, the federal government is not a PC government, so she wouldn't have been a PC auditor. Or sorry, she wouldn't have been a provincial auditor for the BC government, because BC is a provincial level and there's federal level. These are two different levels, right? One is the country level, one is the province level. So there's all these Andreas that are linked to this lawyer. And then you go, well, is it the Guelph lawyer or is it the African Jamaican lawyer? So then I followed the African lady. I'm like, well, she was given a donation to work with black communities. That's obviously the Jamaican lady. Um, and then she claims after working for this, okay, so after someone got hit with the misconduct in 2015, it's like she fled to Quebec. She got government funding for the community outreach project, which was supposed to be funding for 3 years. They gave her $300,000, which she used to open her own law firm, right, and run for political office in Kincardine, Ontario. So the one in Montreal looks like she got diversity hired at Concordia, where she faked 2 degrees for her new identity here. So she doesn't have these degrees. Because you don't get a master without a bachelor's, and she's got a master's of biochemistry and a master's of MBA. So what was her undergrad? Remember the one from Jamaica claimed she had a bachelor of science? Did she though? Um, so there's also an Andrea Clark, Assistant Deputy Minister of Health Canada, on a on a communique for a Lutron Electronics company in 2021. So yeah, if I step back, like I tried to put it all together, it looks like the whole story. Someone in 2007 from Jamaica shows up in Canada claiming to be an environmental health officer with Veronica Cruz in tow. She claims to be have a Bachelor of Science and be in Toronto. Then a lawyer with the name participated in BC in 2011 on what looks like a impersonating a government appointee in a child services case. In 2012, someone attends a symposium on child custody in Arizona, while Guelph is receiving bad reviews in Guelph. Kincardine claims she was in the UK at the time. And in 2015, a lawyer got accused of malpractice in a family law court case. So that's the sketchy period between 2007 and 2015. After that point, it seems to sort of calm down. One Andrea claims to have a Master's of Science and is making money as a community black outreach program. You're paying this lady to, sit there and do nothing for the black community or Canadians because she's not even Canadian. And in 2018, she just opens a law office instead when the funding ran out. So she banked the money for 3 years and then just used it to open her own law firm to impersonate a lawyer because of the other lady's credentials, I guess. So in 2020, she gets diversity hired at Concordia. Suddenly she has a master's, not a bachelor's. And in 2021, she gets appointed as a counselor in Kincardine. And then the one in Windsor gets hired at the university to lecture at the Department of Philosophy as a native expert. That's the professor. And in 2022, the Montreal Andrea gets hired at the Chignon Foundation. In 2022, the Guelph lawyer dies. In 2022, two American Andreas also die in Massachusetts and New York. And in 2022, the Chignon founder died. Everyone's dying around this lady. So it was interesting. And then the interesting thing about this time is they're all dying right before the lady's up for re-election. So we had one, two, three women of this name died, and and her boss. I'm like, yeah, that's not sketchy at all. So again, like I said, there's no link in this to Fraser Health. She just seems to be someone moving a lot of money and a lot of fraud. Uh, Whoops, that was Andrea. Now we're on Candace. So Candace is a lifer student, right? She worked on the remodeling of the Royal Columbian Hospital, or at least so she claims. The reason I call her a lifer student is between 1997 and 2022, she was hovering around BCIT, working on, trying to find internships through the school program, even though she's no longer a student. Because there's no way she'd be a student for over 20 years, right? She participated with three other students on a capstone project in 2021 and 2022. The other three guys that she worked with did graduate. They all graduated in the 2018 to 2022 program. So that was probably the program she was impersonating at the time. She's how can like she's listed as being at the school, like I can see her consistently there. She's got articles where she's linked to student activities long past her graduation, and she's claiming, well, you know what, I was a teacher. I was an apprentice teacher. Were you though? She claims she did that for 7 years, but she doesn't, like, she's claiming degrees she doesn't have here. Again, she claims she was working with Fraser Health between 2022 and 2026, but she only showed up on the books in 2024. So what was she doing in 2023? Like, like I said, she was on the capstone project until 2022. I don't know what happened in 2023, and she didn't graduate if she was attending another degree. She's sitting there impersonating this program year, where all of these people are part of the program. She had graduated journeyman level in 2004. And she has a faculty advisor. She has a faculty advisor. She's not a faculty, is she? And her faculty advisor is Vahid Asghari. How does he not know she hasn't already graduated? Doesn't he know his own students? Doesn't he have a student registry? So that's Candace. Next is Carolyn. So Carolyn was paid only in 2025, so she's a modern, like a recent hire. She claims that she worked at Vancouver Coastal Health in Maple Ridge. So I can't see her at Fraser Health, but she was in a different health authority in that region. Um, there is another lady who claims that she was in Ridge doing university scouting. Um, and she came from the UK, according to what she claims. She came in 2006. Now we know in 2012 there was a record that Carolyn got funded by Ridge Meadows Hospital as part of a continuing education program, and this is in mammography, which explains the medical imaging at Vancouver Coastal Health. So maybe these two people are the same people, and that after 2012, well, in 2012 she would have been a claiming to be an adjunct professor of the University of Ottawa. So if she was a professor at Ottawa, why would she be re-educating as a public funded course in mammography, right? And how did she get accepted into a mammography program with a background in philosophy and international relations? I can see that's why she separated these two profiles completely, right? So is it two people or is it the same person? There's also a Carolyn Clark who claims to be writing books and printing them in Newfoundland. She claims she was from BC. She went to Kwantlen back in '97. At the same time, this UK lady graduated Trent University. So is this lady impersonating the woman who went to Newfoundland? That poor lady only worked at a liquor store and's writing her own books, trying to sell her own books online. So why does the UK lady get to work and not her? Did she take the mammography course? Or did the UK woman take the mammography course? So this lady claims to be doing, graphic design and producing stuff at a paint shop. She claims to be working at a paint shop today. Now we have Daryl. Daryl. So Daryl claims to be with Fraser Health Authority as a janitor, basically, saying he joined in 2022, but he was only paid in 2025. So there's 3 years. He's on the books, in his own head, maybe. Yeah, he claims he's a supervisor for maintenance. Um, he came from a company in the North America that makes uniforms. Great, so he can fake being a janitor because he made his own uniform for 3 years, and maybe they finally hired him because he was around. I don't know. I don't know what happened there. But if I step back, it's like, well, what was he doing before 2025 then? Well, there was a record linked with his name linked to Cambrian College in 2022 and 2023, where he claimed to be the chair of schools of skills and training. So great, he's a carpenter. In BC, Daryl Clark claimed to own a sawmill on Vancouver Island. And in Ontario, there is a company called Clark Portable Sawmills, registered in 2020. So he was doing carpentry, illegal, wood cutting, illegal sawmills. Um, when I looked at the guy in Cambrian College, he just claimed he was, he was the chair of trades and he was privately employed in 2024. There was another dude that was linked to North Atlantic, in Newfoundland. So remember where the other lady went to Newfoundland? He also had a UK version, which was interesting because he graduated from the University of Wales. So, both the Carolyn and the Darrell records are both kind of linked to Newfoundland and the UK. So that might be a coincidence, but what bothers me is that, okay, well, great. He's working for a company that makes uniforms, claiming to be a cleaner, but he also operates this sawmill. Fascinating. Again, like, okay, we see him for 1 year. Why would you pay a janitor $102,000 though? Right? Like Daryl Clark, 100. He was paid in 2025. That was the only year he was paid, and he was already making 102,000 out the gate. For what? Is he like a crime scene cleaner or something? Like, what's he cleaning? Next is Deanna. So Deanna was paid the entire period, so between 2016 to 2025. She, however, worked as an architect. Why is an architect on the Fraser books? She was a builder associated with a company called Cassian Architecture, and they built Jim Pattison Outpatient Center and Surgery in Surrey in 2011. Um, okay, well, great. How does she end up on the Fraser books? Like, why did they need an architect? In 2016, she showed up in Port Moody at a transportation conference, claiming to represent Fraser Health already. So she was standing beside another guy from Fraser Health named Alex Kwan. Alex Kwan's profile states he was at the University of Victoria at this time. He was not a member of Fraser Health until 2000. No, he does. He claims to be an environmental health officer at Fraser Health in New Westminster since 2001. Um, so he did not graduate from the University of Victoria. He would have been a student at that university when he attended this transportation advisement, um, as a interested party in Fraser Health, and he was impersonating an environmental officer at a time, um, when this lady should have been an architect, right? Doesn't make sense, does it? And why would this guy be doing environmental before? Like, he claims he graduated in 2001 from BCIT. But again, this guy was only paid in 2021. So the only role that this guy was known as was this last position in Fraser Health. So that last position is the only thing that matches the books. So, 5 years prior to that, he's running around at conventions with another architect lady at a conventions, and both of them are claiming to represent Fraser Health before the books see them on Fraser Health. Or just when she made the books at Fraser Health somehow. So he wasn't on the books, but she was. So, but again, that makes you wonder, well, why did they need an architect on the books? Like, her background's in building and design. That doesn't sound like someone who should be publicly funded by Fraser Health. Um, let's see. Um, I did find someone with her name operating in mining with De Beers Canada in Northwest Territories. She was featured in between 2020 and 2021 as being a miner. And I also found a Deanna Clark who was let go from UHN in 2020-2021, around the same time as this lady going to mining. She was an administrative assistant at claiming to be at Mount Sinai Hospital, but neither of the two hospitals she claimed to be an administrative assistant, neither of them are part of the UHN. So, and then there's this lady who operates an animal clinic in Toronto, which is like, okay, well, that's interesting. And there's also a black and white one in Edmonton, Alberta. One was paid by the radio, claiming to operate as a legal assistant. And the other one was working in crisis intervention and addiction. So it's like, okay, that's interesting. The only one linked to health services was the lady in Alberta in crisis intervention. The only one linked to Fraser Hospital was the architect, who's also standing beside a sketchy Asian man. At a transportation convention. So it's like, why were they interacting with Port Moody? So Cassian had nothing to do with Port Moody. Cassian was in Surrey and Laudner and White Rock. So, interesting, no? Then we got Evelyn. So Evelyn, oh, sorority queen here. Evelyn is a American nurse who came to Canada, and claims she's been with Fraser Health since 2019. However, she was attending a sorority, in Georgia. So on her Facebook page, she has this lovely little wedding photo, and she has photo of her and all these her girlfriends. They're dressed up and as a, nurse practitioner. And then she has her, sorority letters and beautiful Christmas colored lights. And then you go look it up. It's like, okay, well, that's Alpha Delta Pi. Alpha Delta Pi is a sorority in Georgia, at Wesleyan College. And I go compare the profile to the lady in Wesleyan College. She has a very similar wedding dress outfit on her profile. In this one, she claims she's married to Chase Clark, and she just got married in 2025. And then you go, okay, in Georgia, she's like, okay, well, they claimed they were nurses in 2019, or nursing students, but 2 weeks later, after posting the nursing photo, they're in Europe on vacation with the gal pals, with the same women who were in the nursing photo. At least two of them. The ones on the complete edges, right? The two holding the frame and the one in the center are standing with it, right? Okay. So I'm like, does she have nursing credentials? Like, she looks like this BSN nursing student graduating in May of 2023 in Georgia. It's a similar photo. She just slapped on a pair of glasses. She claims she was a tutor at Wesleyan College, and a key holder for Pandora jewelry. Oh, how special. So she claims she's going to be a registered nurse in 2023. So in 2019, she wasn't even a nurse, right? She just took a photo with a bunch of ladies dressed up as nurses. So that's Evelyn Mobley, right? And like I said, so we think Evelyn Clark is Evelyn Mobley. She attended the sorority in Georgia at Wesleyan College between 2014 and 2019. She seems to have received nursing credentials in West Virginia after attending college in Georgia. So, this lady says, yeah, I was going to graduate in 2023. Yeah, we can see someone got West Virginia credentials. Not coastal Georgia, somewhere in West Virginia, but okay. This Facebook profile says she married a Chase Clark. And then apparently in 2025, when she, got paid, where was she paid? She was on the books in 2021. So she would have been on the books as she was attending nursing college in West Virginia. Why are we funding nurses in West Virginia? And she wasn't even married to it yet, but she's already using the Clark name of her boyfriend to garner funds to go to school in West Virginia. Are they claiming fake natives to get paid as natives? Like, what's going on there? So, a woman from Ottawa died when the BC Facebook nurse with all the photos linking her to Mobley and Georgia, the one with pictures, the BC profile has pictures from the Georgian woman, and the BC profile claims she went to the high school in 2012, and there was a woman who died in Ottawa in 2012 with this name right here. She claims she graduated from King George the same year the cancer patient died. So this first lady in Burnaby died, and she donated her estate to the Cancer Society. Then we have this lady who died in 2018. She donated her estate as well, possibly to KGH Foundations, because someone in KGH recognized that she donated that year. So it makes you wonder, is this girl living off of the funds and donations to these hospitals from these dead women? Claiming that I donated, you have to give me money back and you have to help and support me or something? Like, what's going on? Like, how did she get her way? How did she step into being a registered nurse? Or why is she claiming to be a registered nurse? I don't find any profile with her at Fraser Health, right? I just see a woman who graduated in 2023 and she had nursing credentials in West Virginia. So if she was being paid since 2021, it was while she was attending nursing college. Does she or does she not have nursing credentials? Is she claiming she was doing a residency up here? Why are we giving residencies to American students? Is that what happened? Was she doing a residency as an American student up here? Do nurses do residencies or just doctors? How does this work? But she clearly didn't have credentials. She didn't get them signed until 2023. So if she was here in 2021, she's operating, and if that was the nurse, she's operating for 2 years without any health credentials, trying to use her experience in our hospital to get credentials in West Virginia. So, that's interesting. Next is Jacqueline. So, Jacqueline's interesting. So in 2013, two ladies, lesbian ladies, were, sharing a kiss on the bus in BC, and they got attacked by a dude, and they made an article about it. So her lady lover was a Métis woman named Allie Matson. That's the first we hear of these ladies. Now, Allie Matson claims to work with the Métis nations of BC. But there's no record of Jacqueline here working in BC. There's another woman who looks a lot like this lady who claims to be J and L Clark, one of those two-spirited Métis fake native faith things. So if she's Allie Matson working with this program, why is she impersonating a manager at CIBC? So then I'm like, well, hold on. There's a Jackie Clark who's also at CIBC, claiming to be out of Kitchener, Ontario, who looks like this woman. So what is a woman from Waterloo doing with a Métis woman in BC? Both linked to CIBC. So for the first, both linked together in CIBC around the time of the bus attack, right? So the woman's a financial services representative claiming to be from Waterloo, but for some reason she's in BC with this manager in Matisse manager who's claiming to be doing fundraising at actually no, she's not claiming to be anything at that point. That's before she claims to be anything. That's before she claimed to be a fundraiser for NDP. So then I go, okay, well that's weird. So she's working in insurance then. What is a woman working in insurance doing being paid by Fraser Health? So when I stepped back, like there's a few people working in insurance. There was a Jacqueline Clark who came from the Caribbean in 2006 for her first internship illegally hired in Canada at a company called TU Group in 2006. Now, when the lesbian Jackie attacked on the bus, joined, I guess, economical insurance, and her last position in Waterloo was between this period was 2017, was it? Da, 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 da. Yeah, in 2017, that TU insurance company opened a branch in Latvia. Why do we have an insurance company in BC opening a branch in Latvia? And why is a Jamaican working at a sketchy insurance company that's opening a thing in Latvia? So that was a similar year as when this lady transferred over from CIBC to economical insurance. And she's been linked to insurance ever since of economical insurance. So, okay, Caribbean lady worked at an insurance company. Suddenly a Latvian is operating under the name in insurance. Is that what happened? But this lady was around since 2013, claiming to be linked to CIBC through her Matisse girlfriend. Well, where did she come from? Um, so when I branched out, it's like before 2017, I found this lady in also with the name Jackie Clark from Burlington. She was claiming to work off and on with a bunch of banks. CIBC, Scotiabank, BMO, all like pretty much all the banks. But she has this one outlier position here in 2016 where she claims to work for Kick Custom Products. Now, Kick Custom Products is owned by an investment firm at Centerbridge Partners. She was also there shortly before the Latvian company opened. So when I'm like, okay, well, I looked up Centerbridge Partners um, and I found Suzanne Clark here. Suzanne Clark looks a little bit like this Matisse woman. So this is a managing director of an organization. There was another lady from Dubai in Australia, remember, who was with financial trading, right? She, it's kind of funny. It's like, okay, well, this lady's from Australia, like maybe she's from Australia, since a lot of these ladies seem to be going through that direction. So I found this one, this Jacqueline Clark in Australia, who also looks like Suzanne, the Matisse lady. who kind of looks like Ali Madsen, and she claims to work in engineering recruitment in Australia, which is the field that this Jacqueline here would have been working in, because she would have been graduated in computer science. So is this a fake profile set up by this Australian recruiter, or did she apply to the Australian recruiter, and the Australian recruiter manufactured this ID? Like, what happened? Somehow these two made a connection in, we know, before 2013, and they were in BC before 2013. And in 2016, these two records were kind of linked at the same time period with both these women's faces. So they appear together in 2013, in 2016, and in this whole period. So between 2013 and 2017, they seem to be linked records between them in all these different places, on all these different records for a Jackie Clark and a J&L Clark and Ali Madsen and Suzanne Clark. So the one who's changing names appears to be the Métis woman. Métis woman is using 3 different names. But the Jacqueline Clark is always using one name, Jackie or Jacqueline. So something else strange I noticed. There was a post on Facebook. Someone was like, oh, in 2024, someone lost their wallet for a Jacqueline Clark in Chicago in a north parking lot. And they're like, oh no, I found her. I returned the wallet. Now, this lady was Jacqueline Clark, a construction consultant and owner of a, I guess, this construction group, claiming to operate out of Wisconsin and Chicago. She's also a sorority woman. She was a Tau Beta Pi Sigma Lambda Chi or whatever. Maybe it's a group, a business group, or it's a sorority. Now, when I went back to this, hold on, there was an insurance lady operating in the construction space. Like, Jackie Clark joined Excess Underwriting in September as the assistant vice president of the commercial underwriting. So we have the lady who's using the construction credentials, the lady who's using insurance credentials. And then when I step back, this lady looks like Jacqueline Clark, Chief Executive Officer at a Dynamic Capital Trading, claiming to be operating in Zimbabwe and UAE. So she's a lot older now. So here's her young photo here. Here's her old photo there. She's next to another sort of, I guess, Middle Eastern looking native girl. Clearly she has a type. But she's claiming she was in Australia until 2019 doing trading, and then her profile states she's in Dubai. And then there's this lady who was in Chicago in 2024, and before that she was in BC and Ontario. So did she break up with the Métis woman? Move herself out? Did she get attacked? Did she get replaced in Chicago? Like, what happened? It's pretty suspicious she lost a wallet there. But the lady we see is still a lesbian in Zimbabwe. The older lady at the end of the line is still a lesbian. So I guess, that didn't change, thankfully. So did the woman who came from the Caribbean sell an ID to the Latvian woman and start the whole mess? Or did the Latvian woman use the credentials from the insurance company to manufacture her identity? Like, what happened? And what's up with the Latvian agency there? Anyway, we'll keep going. So we are on Oh, next one is kind of traumatizing. Dun, dun, dun. So now we're moving to Julianne. So this is the weirdest one yet, and probably the most traumatizing in terms of crime and violence and terrorism in Canada. So Julianne is a director from the Sabbath School, leader of the New Life Seventh-day Adventist Church. This is an African woman who's come through a Michigan church for African Americans. It's like the church is completely run by Africans. Like every photo is an African person, and she's operating in BC. So what they did is they're operating Camp Hope. And you might remember it's like, why does that sound familiar? Well, Camp Hope was I guess, religious camp that was housing fire evacuees from the forest fires around Lytton, Ontario, or not Ontario, Lytton, BC. And there were articles written while they were housing survivors from Lytton there for months. And, they were helping 300 people out of 200 people at a time. So you're like, oh, but that sounds good. What's wrong with that? Well, they started getting paid by the Fraser Health Authority, by Singh Gill, before the fires were lit. So he put into motion the forest fires and the camp, funding the camp so that they take people in and move migrants. You know, I'll get to why I'm saying move illegal migrants. And he funded that before the fires were lit. And he continued to fund it up until today. They're still funding this program. So how do I know this is illegal immigrations? Well, the people they were housing, the last 21 claimed to be First Nations, right? They were 21 people with no one to go. It's taking forever. We're Layton's First Nations. And I go, okay, well, I went to the census for Layton's First Nations. Their population size was 575 in 2016. After the fires, it's now up to 2,000. So they multiplied their population by 4. That's obviously not natural, right? There's no fucking way they multiplied their population by 4. It looks like they're using the fires to move refugees from the United States through this church group, and that they're being funded and paid for by someone on the board of Fraser Health. So why are they paying to move peoples? And why is the Canadians peoples funding the terrorism, the burning down of our countryside, destruction of our natural resources, and the harassment of our native peoples? We don't want to pay for that. Why is an African telling us what to do and an Indian telling us what to do? Using the name of Australians and South Africans. So this one was triggering for me. It's very enraging. It's like, so what the fuck gives you the right to burn down our home and dump your people onto it? This is why we're dealing with so many fake natives, and because you're letting these people do this shit, and it's visible. It's visible in the census statistics that it's happening. So that one's a little bit triggering. So then there's Catherine. So Catherine was paid for the full duration, and she's one of the most overloaded names I've seen in Canada. There's like 5 in BC, 9 in Ontario, 4 in Alberta, 3 in Nova Scotia. This lady's everywhere. Oh my God. So there is a woman working in kinesiology who was rowing in New Zealand, and that's probably the problem. When she went to New Zealand and rowed and spent time there, they probably stole her ID. So issue is there's 2 of them. She came back to BC and she's working for a private company in kinesiology. But the problem is not her. It's 2 other women. One who looks like the same person, right? One woman has a profile claiming she's a sells oncology medicine at AstraZeneca. The other one is I'm working at BC Hospital as an anesthesiologist. So great. Are you stealing meds from your BC hospital, the women's hospital? Is that really how you're selling medicine from AstraZeneca? You're not selling medicine from AstraZeneca, you're stealing it from the hospital. And the reason I'm so mean to her is this. Um, She claims she's working at UBC. She claims she moved to UBC after attending a residency at Mayo Clinic between 2021 and 2022. But in Mayo Clinic, she's managing a Twitter page that looks like an unofficial channel that's not linked to or mentioned by the official Mayo Clinic. There is a web page that claims, well, she was a chief resident for the anesthesiology program, but it's a corrupted page. Like the date's hovering over the text, and it doesn't quite look right, does it? And when I looked through her social media and her Mayo profile, it claims she attended university in Ireland. I'm like, okay, well, then I went out and looked at Ireland and found this beauty queen, Katie Clark. In 2024, she was Miss Northern Ireland. She was a social media executive and primary teacher. Also a musical theater performer, and she worked at Disney UK. Well, I didn't find anyone in Disney UK claiming she existed. The education in Dublin says she took history and religion, not anything medical related. Um, the social media company that she claims to work for incorporated in 2020. And there are 6 people currently listed on their website, and she's not there. So they don't recognize her. And, after she claims to work for the social media company, that's when she's managing an Instagram account for Mayo. Then suddenly she went back to Ireland to be a beauty queen. Like, so another problem was, like, there was this in the United States, there was a clinical research nurse working on cancer, right? Um, Her profile goes stagnant in 2013. She was from what's MA? Montana, North Carolina, something like that. She was linked to being in Georgia as well. So they're in the UK. Someone named Catherine Clark won a gold sponsorship scholarship worth £3,000 for training for her work in cancer research. So it looks like the American Catherine Clark was, told, given here, I'll give you this money in 2012. Come to UK, and then she just disappears. Now the people who paid for it was called Maclay Trust and Crook Cancer Research UK. So I don't know what happened to her after the UK. There's no record of her after the UK. This lady does not claim to be from the UK. This lady does not claim to be from. This lady does kind of claim to be from Ireland, but again, there's no one in Ireland who studied or took a school. No one's claiming school. There's no profile. This lady doesn't even have a profile, right? The beauty queen didn't have a profile. There was one in Ireland for the social media exec, and there was one here in Vancouver for the AstraZeneca. And the AstraZeneca lady used the Novartis connection, like 4 years later. And she claims, well, this lady was in the UK. She was selling, drugs in Calgary. After Novartis, she claims she was with Paladin Labs in BC. Paladin Labs or a Paladin security guy who's selling drugs on the side? Like, what are we dealing with here? Like, there's this lady over in the UK also claiming a kinesiology background, attending a summer camp in Texas. Does not look like this blonde woman. Looks like she's trying to impersonate this lady as well from New Zealand. So, yeah, it didn't look right. Again, nobody claims to work for Fraser Health. She's claiming UBC, she's claiming AstraZeneca, she's claiming a private clinic. Um, None of them claim to work for Fraser Health Authority. So none of them publicly claim Fraser Health. They're claiming other things. Next is Laura. Oh, Laura's a good one too. So there's two problem groups of Laura. So Laura was again paid for the whole duration between 2016 and 2025. Um, there are two regions in BC linked to Fraser Health. Both of them have an actress trained Laura. So one of these regions is Parkville. So in Parkville, there are two people using this name. One woman operates an animal rescue with Mexico, and the other is an actress who also claims to be a occupational health and safety professional working with WorkSafe BC, except, she doesn't really claim how she's working with WorkSafe BC. She just kind of says, I'm an assistant production coordinator as a freelance. So I don't know what she's doing with WorkSafe BC. She doesn't even say what she's doing at WorkSafe BC. She claims she has an occupational health at University of Victoria. I'm kind of like, yeah, I don't believe it. We'll get into why. So in 2023, someone opened a GoFundMe for a Blaine Clark. Blaine Clark was hit by a car and he's fractured his legs and now he needs money for surgery. We're in Canada, right? So clearly if this guy needs money for surgery, he's probably not Canadian, first off. Because, we treat emergency services. So they wouldn't need to fundraise to send him to the hospital and keep him alive. Second of all, this man's his Facebook page actually mentions this lady. She has a photo of this woman who's the actress, except he calls her Daniela, my adopted teenage daughter from Brazil. So the lady's name's Daniela. Great. Okay, hi Daniela. You're using someone else's name. Great. So this kinky-haired lady is very unique looking. She's also featured on um, claiming to be a CEO of Client Earth in the UK. So she's Brazilian woman has a profile in the UK. She's got a profile in Vancouver. She's mentioned on her adopted, Facebook dad who she helped fundraise um, as being from Brazil. Now, isn't the only Laura Clark who did a GoFundMe. There was another one in Ontario for Camp Bellwood. In both of these cases, she's raising quite a bit of money, about $30,000 a pop. So in Camp Bellwood, you think, oh well, that sounds nice. They're trying to fund for a summer camp. So they're funding this campaign in 2020. Only Camp Bellwoods is shut down in 2020 because of COVID restrictions. So, and on the organizer, she lists a bunch of people, one of which is Sally Guns. Sally Guns is a past camp president. She's not a current president of Camp Bellwood. Another one is James Lorty. He is working in he moved to Thunder Bay after the COVID restrictions. He's working for a company called Pink Mafia Productions. Another one is this lady linked to Bahrain, whose profile went stagnant sometime after 2015. So we don't know what she's doing, but she was working um, as a autism consultant and a life coach, she claims, before 2015. She spent some time with UNESCO in Bahrain. So did she do the scam twice on GoFundMe for two different times, once in 2020 and again in 2023? Did Blaine Clark does have photos on his Facebook page where he does claim to be in an accident and you see him in a hospital bed. So something did happen to Blaine Clark. But why did he need funding if he was a Canadian citizen? Where did the $30,000 go? Okay, so that was Parkville. The other region associated with this identity and Fraser Health was here. It was a Chilliwack. There were two records in Chilliwack. One claimed to be a client partner, and the other claimed to be a geriatric nurse. Now Chilliwack here was featured in an article in 2019. Like she had her photo up and everything, but she looks like this realtor lady from Stillhaven, and Stillhaven's been flagged before. I think in the Chen story as being a sketchy realtor. This lady claims she went to theater. Like her photo has her being much thinner. Like the realtor's profile has her being like a much thinner woman, but now she's this big, big fatter woman who looks like the Chilliwack. I guess maybe she got pregnant, who knows? Or maybe life happened and age happened, or maybe she got replaced, who knows? But the realtor has a theater degree as well. Um, you know, this lady was on her Facebook, the one who looks like the realtor and the nurse, was calling for voting in an American election. She was acting like an American. Um, there is a lady in Alberta who claims to be half American. Her father, she says, came from Newfoundland. Her mother was from Wisconsin. There's also this mortgage lender in Alberta. So in Alberta, there's both an educational assistant and a mortgage lender. And in BC, there was the realtor who was interfering with land claims on Vancouver Island. Now, she bought a house in Chilliwack in 2005. At the same time, a woman claimed to be working in finance for Oak Bay in Victoria Island. There's also a woman claiming to work as a trade commissioner for Global Affairs Canada out of the immigrations building. And there's more things linked to the Chilliwack lady. There's a Laura in Indiana who claims to be both an educator and a nurse. There's a lady in writing bisexual propaganda. Sorry, it was a LGBTQ propagandas as an author. Claiming where was she from? La la la, somewhere in Canada. So yeah, okay. Is she a nurse or is she a realtor? Is she an actress or a con artist from Brazil? I think there's probably at least two of them, right? But are the two of them using this realtor lady's ID? One of them took the realtor job and one of them took the theater degree. Because this realtor's ID, page went sort of defunct in 2004, or it stopped updating. I don't know. But again, if she was a nurse in 2015, 2019, why is she still being paid in 2025 if she's changed jobs to be a realtor? Like, I would think she wouldn't need the two jobs, right? And how would she have time to be a nurse and a realtor? That doesn't make sense, right? Okay, Matthew. This one's long. We're already like 2 hours in. I'm getting tired. All right, Matthew is a YouTuber. He's on social media in 2021. He was paid between 2021 and 2025, right? So he appeared on YouTube talking about living off the grid in the wild regions of Canada. He was building a cabin in the Yukon. So the payment started when he was being asked to dismantle his cabin. Um, and then what happens is his identity splits into three people: the YouTuber, a Burton RCMP officer, and someone working in the fisheries around Vancouver Island. So it's like, well, I don't think the RCMP photo does not look like the same man. The as the YouTuber, if you look at his YouTube channel, there's no photo for the fishery man, but he is listed as being active. I think it was in 2024. He's on an article listed in 2024 and 2023. So according to Facebook, one of his pals who worked with this YouTuber on the rigs in Alberta between 2016 and 2019. And in 2017, there was a fentanyl drug bust for a 41-year-old using his name. Now, this kid is a little bit too young to be 41 in 2017. He would have been almost 50 now. So somebody used his name in the same region where he was working on the rigs, right? So if I zoom in here, this guy, this buddy of his who claimed to work with him was working with him on the rigs in Grand Prairie and Red Deer. So between 2016 and 2019, it was coil tubing operations in Grand Prairie. And that is exactly where this dude, this 41-year-old, got picked up for drug trafficking. I was like, okay, well, that's interesting. So he, before this, I found his profile. It went to 2013. He was just working in carpentry and as a painter and a handyman in Alberta, Calgary. It looks like he was having trouble finding a vocation. He didn't have any higher education. So it's like, great, okay. So from 2013 to 2016, he was trying to be a painter handyman. And then 2016 to 2017, he was trying to work on the oil rigs. Someone got busted with his name for fentanyl. So I don't know if if it was him or someone else. It claimed to be a 41-year-old. This guy seems a little bit old for that. The guy picked up arrested seems to be too old compared to this guy, but it's hard to say. And then, then he's building cabins in the Yukon off the grid. And then there's an RCMP officer and a fisheries guy using his name. So the RCMP guy looks like he might have been 41 in 2017. I don't have a photo for the fisheries guy. What's interesting also is in 2025, a couple was arrested for a fentanyl-related murder in Texas. So we have a photo here of two peoples. So he was picked up. A Matthew Hunter Clark was sold fentanyl to a victim before she died. Uh, um, this lady here is Taylor Lambert. Um, Now, when I looked her up, there's a photo of her and another man hanging out. She's claiming to work for Vulcan Materials Company. That sounds like a mining company. There's another profile of her for being a certified registered nurse, and another profile of her claiming she's got a legal credentials to operate in Texas. There was also a child custody hearing in 2023 in Texas, which was dismissed because the prosecution didn't show up in 2024. Then suddenly she has legal credentials. A Taylor has legal credentials, and a Taylor wanted was that a case and the prosecution didn't show up. Like, okay, is that a coincidence? And then you look at the victim. Okay, well, the victim kind of also looks like her. It was Amber Morris, a realtor from Texas. And then I go compare this to the YouTuber and his wife. Well, she kind of looks like his wife. And the YouTuber kind of looks a little bit like the guy who got arrested. So, did they replace the YouTuber? Was the YouTuber actually selling fentanyl, drug dealing in the United States and in Canada? Is that why he's living off the grid? That's an interesting question, isn't it? Last is Shannon. So Shannon was also paid for the whole period. Um, this one's interesting too. So we have a lighting tech. So a woman was working as a lighting tech for a ballet studio in New York before 2018. That's this lady down here. So their webpage was last updated in 2018. So sometime before 2018, she was there as a lighting tech. Then we see she's hired up here as an administrative assistant for Newark Beth Israel Medical Center. A blonde version of her appears in claiming to be around in 2017 in Ontario. So, okay, this lady was working lighting, and now there's a profile for her in New York and a profile for her in Ontario. But one she's blonde and one she's a brunette. Okay. And then there's this lady over here, who claims to be working in New Jersey. We got a Facebook page. She's claiming she's still at Newark between 2023 to now. And then this lady, who looks like her, claims, well, I'm working at BC Healthy Community Society after completing my master's degree in public health in Victoria in 2014. Now I'm working with local governments to support policy process as a secretary in the Office of the Representative for Children and Youth, whatever the hell that is. But she's sitting here going, I'm a white settler. I colonized native peoples. No white person is going to say they're a white settler who colonized native peoples. Just saying. Like, that's, you only see this from South Africans and Australians, I swear to God. So I immediately went and looked for her. I'm like, okay, well, uh, so I only found her in New Jersey. I found her in New Jersey. Um, I found her in New York. There's a woman claiming to be from Newfoundland, working as a psychologist in the East Coast, who's sort of similar looks like her. Um, she attended school around 20, maybe graduated around 2014, but it wasn't Victoria. It was she's claiming Memorial University instead. I can see somebody showed up and attended two public health conferences with a Dr. Victoria Barr, who was a new graduate at the time, and that woman did graduate from the fall convocation of 2016. So it's like the lady showed up sometime in 2017, 2018 to attend a couple conferences, and then suddenly what? She's Canadian? She's impersonating a medical secretary from Ontario to get hired to this BC organization. So what's interesting about this as well is in 2025, her name is linked in New Jersey in submitting insurance claims against pharmaceutical companies. She's got three claims under her name. So somebody's collecting insurance in New Jersey for her. You go, is it the same person? Is it a different person? This woman was supposedly working at least until 2023 at Beth Israel. But then in 2025, there was also a major fraud case against a Pakistani man linked against both her employer and a social security fraud being prosecuted by an assistant attorney with her name. So there's an assistant attorney with her name who stepped through multiple states. She starts as a, park ranger. Then suddenly she's a legal intern, a law clerk, and now suddenly she's an attorney. And no, 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 no. These guys aren't part of the. These guys. Let's see. It's like they were charged with indictment and conspiracy. It was a Rhonda Knox and Michael Knox of Missoula, Montana, who were linked to Social Security fraud as part of this Pakistani man's scheme. So they concealed where they were living to the benefit of this man, I guess, and that they were employed and gained Social Security to pay for, and benefits that they were not eligible for. So, and she's the one who's supposedly prosecuting the case. So is this a fake document? Is she trying to get them out of the fraud by claiming, yeah, yeah, I'm prosecuting it? Or are they moving funds back to somewhere from this lady's theft? Like what bothers me is there's like one, two, three, four, five photos of her, and there she's all in different roles. It's too much of a coincidence to have five peoples. As an aside, I also got triggered by this black lady here. There's a black woman using her name as well at Queen's University who's obviously gotten a racist diversity scholarship. Um, she wrote a paper on creating racist spaces for only migrants. It's for Caribbean women in Canada, for black diasporas. We're going to make spaces for them. Why would you pay a racist to move people to Canada and be racist? Why would you award her a scholarship to study here? I don't understand. And oh, by the way, there's also a black man using her name. He's in Bridgetown, Barbados. Look at him there. Oh my god. He's claiming to be a digital healthcare entrepreneur and director of CarePoint Solutions. Yeah, don't believe it for a second, buddy. So her name was also linked to Montana and Washington, and there were a bunch of different people. So there's a few lady in Washington who looks like someone who owns a food restaurant franchise, and there's a woman down here um, uh, who owns a accounting firm who looks like she was a journalist. But yeah, the big concern was this lady who was, she's attending public health conferences. Um, there is a record here that someone claimed, like that she claimed to be the manager of neonatal intensive care at Royal Columbian Hospital um, in 2023. But the only profile that links directly to her is this kind of unofficial looking website that's not linked through the Fraser Health Royal Columbian page. So they have like separate IT services and they look kind of sketchy, and that page claims she's been there since 2000, but it's hard to say. I can see someone attended public health, and that's this other lady over here. And does she look like that lady? Yes, she does. So, and like I said, that lady looks sketchy, and she's linked to all of the allegations in the United States with the fraud case against Beth Israel. So it's hard to say. But anyway, as you can see, there's a lot of sketchiness going on there. We had a lot of people who claimed to be with Fraser Health who weren't. There were folks who had claiming credentials who didn't have it. There's folks coming from outside the country, interfering and participating in native lands and illegal migration. One woman's totally triggering because she seems like she participated in the forest fires. But yeah, that is the Clark family. So yes, there are white families too, but yes, it looks like we're primarily having issues with migrant peoples. I don't see Canadian peoples running scams. I see migrant peoples running scams. I'm sorry guys, this looks like a migrant problem. And you're not going to convince me otherwise. I guess that's it. Until next time.